Hi, my name is James Miller, and it is August, I think, 18th, about 10 days away from my 41st birthday. I'm a healthy man. I've been going to the gym for the last 4 years, doing yoga, and I golf on a weekly basis. I do have family history of heart disease on both my mother and father's side. But I am in here because at the age of 40, I'm experiencing a heart attack. Yesterday, I had surgery. They installed 2 stents. Today, I am in recovery. I have surgery again tomorrow for the left side of my heart, where they believe they have at least 1 additional stent to put in. Arteries are being blocked by blood clots, not plaque. We eat a healthy diet. My son has some food allergies, so we stay away from processed foods for the most part. We eat a lot of grilled chicken, broccoli, potatoes, and this was totally unexpected. Actually, went to the gym yesterday morning to do yoga, and I had a really good class. It was at 9:30 in the morning, and I'm gonna pause this video for now. So I was at yoga at 9:30. Class is an hour long. It was technically a hot yoga class, heated, but it wasn't that hot in there. I've been a lot hotter before. I had taken 2 weeks off of yoga because I recently moved back to South Florida and didn't think anything of it. A few times that I got a little tired, I had rested and then got back up and kept doing the flow and working out. And towards the end of the class, as we're supposed to lay down and rest so our bodies can come back and relax and our heart rate come down, I noticed feeling I've never felt before. My arms, both of my arms, started tingling as if I couldn't get comfortable at all. My body started tingling through my legs, and I was feeling weak, exhausted. I thought I was going into a vasovagal type of response where I was close to maybe just blacking out or passing out from overexertion, or maybe I got myself a little dehydrated. Which prior to this class, I made sure I had some eggs for breakfast an hour before class, as well as I drank some hydration fluids, and I as well had a hydration drink with me in the class that I drank throughout the class. So I looked around and I realized I need to prop my legs up to get the blood flowing back from my legs, maybe back to my brain, because I was not feeling right at all. The clarity of how my body was feeling in my brain was completely different than I've ever felt before. I realized I went to the back of the classroom to lay my legs up against the wall, and I was too weak to keep them straight up and down. And about 10 minutes later, after the class was over, some of the instructors came over to check on me. So they must have just thought I was, stretching a little more of my lower back. But I told them as they came by that I wasn't doing well. I was not feeling well. They realized that, and they came to try to help me in any way they could. Was able to then straighten out and not keep my legs up against the wall, but they had a couple of yoga blocks that they had stacked under each of my legs, so I was able to keep them elevated, but at the same time relaxed enough that my legs weren't falling off the side of the wall like they were, or crossing my legs, because I couldn't keep them vertical. And at least 45 minutes later of laying there and feeling nauseous, pain in my body throughout, I started realizing that I was getting a little better, that the tingling and the pain was subsiding, but I was still dizzy, not feeling right at all. One of the trainers walked me out of the yoga room, sat down on the bench. They had constantly asked me if they should call 911 for me, and I think I was a little bullheadish, and I was just like, no, I'll be okay. I didn't get enough sleep last night and went a little too hard in yoga class, doing handstands, headstands, and everything else. And to the point where I realized I couldn't drive, and instead of calling 911, I had called one of my best buddies, who's a paramedic EMT firefighter, and he was able to come pick me up, test and see if I had a pulse in my arms. He found that when he picked me up. He then took me over to a fire department to get checked out. Unfortunately, they had just left 7 minutes prior to me and him arriving there with their ambulance and fire trucks and everything. So I wasn't able to get an EKG at that time. He was able to get a cuff and take my blood pressure. Now, I had started having shoulder pains, but I attribute that to muscle pain because I've had a history of muscle spasms from my chest into my shoulder, which leads to tightness in my shoulder, and typically that was caused from doing handstands and yoga. Long story short, we were thinking, okay, well, I got a history of that. Maybe that's the cause for this. I'm a healthy, 40-year-old, and maybe we just were dehydrated, overexerted ourselves. So at that time, he instructed me that if I wasn't feeling any better, that he can get me, he could take me anywhere, but let's get some hydration in you when he dropped me off, and rest. I rested till about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I just knew I wasn't feeling right. I wasn't feeling well. My wife had just flown out in the morning to Houston, and I had dropped my son off at school yesterday morning, and it was getting close to time to pick him up. I had as well called my wife to explain to her what's happening to me, that I wasn't doing well. I had called my father and brother. They knew I wasn't feeling well. I had left my truck at the gym and was able to take my wife's car, thinking, okay, let's see if I can do this. And I realized a quarter of the way there that I shouldn't be driving. I was on the phone with my wife. We discussed maybe it was lack of blood sugar that was affecting me. I hadn't eaten any lunch. I had a Cliff Bar at the gym they gave me and some juice. some hydration coconut juice, and went to Chick-fil-A to see, hey, let me get chicken sandwich. Maybe that could help my blood sugar if that was the cause of me feeling faint. And so I did that. I pulled over, ordered a sandwich, ate it in the car there, and I still just wasn't right. I called my father. I asked him to pick my son up, which he was able to do. I'm getting a blood pressure cuff hurting my arm right now. And both him and my wife said, you need to go to ER or emergency clinic, and there was one right around the corner. So that's what I decided to do. Went into a walk-in clinic. And of course, once I got admitted in there and started talking to one of the nurses, first thing is like, oh, everything was about COVID. Are you sure you're not having a fever? Are you sure you're not experiencing coughing or anything like that? I'm like, no, this is not COVID. I don't feel well. I feel nauseous. I have pain in my left arm, my left chest. And I explained to him everything that just happened from working out and thinking it was dehydration or this and that. And then he realized, okay, after taking my temperature, 97.1, and that wasn't a high temperature, and he said, you know what, I'm going to bring you into the back to get an EKG. Ran the first test. He said, you know, I'm going to get this going because we take heart issues seriously, and the doctor's just going to order that anyway, so I'm going to get that going. Ran the first EKG, immediately grabbed the paper, and he ran out of the room and called for the doctor. I heard the doctor say, yes, okay, I'll be right there. The nurse came back in and explained that he was going to run the test a couple more times just to make sure these readouts are accurate, that that maybe if something was wrong, if we run it a few more times just to make sure. Obviously trying not to alarm me. Ran the test a total of 4 times, and the test came back the same each time. Shortly thereafter, the doctor came in, asked me a few questions, and then basically got blunt and to the point and said, Jimmy, you're having a heart attack. Call your family. We're calling 911 right now. And shortly thereafter, I'm still trying to absorb all this that's going on, thinking that I was just, had some muscle pain, spasms or exhaustion, or dehydration. And to hear the words that you're having a heart attack at my age just really took me by surprise. They asked me if I had the COVID vaccine. I told them no, that I have had COVID twice. First time was in March 2020, and the second time was in March 2021. And that, I wasn't planning on getting the vaccine. I had moved back to South Florida from Houston 2 months ago. My father has had the vaccine, and since moving back, I had worked with my father on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, for our work. We have a family business. And that is the only person that, for extended period of times, that I've ever come close to that often who's had the vaccine. Everybody else I've known maybe have had vaccine but not spent as much time with them and or have had COVID. Wasn't too concerned about COVID vaccine issues that I've heard about in the news about people getting blood clots because I didn't have the vaccine. I wasn't planning on getting the vaccine. Long story short, let's get back to what happened yesterday. Got to the hospital. Immediately they're prepping me. First was taken in by the ambulance, hooked me up, EKG. They ran their EKG to see if it matched what the walk-in clinic had. It did. They immediately gave me 4 baby aspirins and spaced out 3 nitroglycerin packets under my tongue while we were on the way to the hospital. That seemed to have helped lower something, but it was only temporary. You know, their job was to stabilize me until they got me to the hospital, which they did, and they were very, very nice, very helpful. The hospital was great. The staff was great. They took me right in. They prepped me. They explained things to me. Shortly thereafter, after going through the procedures, moving from one gurney to the next, I was told they were bringing me up to the cath lab to go and have catheter up through my groin up to my heart. They were getting ready to put stents into my heart, and I'm very grateful to the doctors here and the nurses for that. That surgery was minimal pain. The little pain I felt was when the doctor first inserted the catheter, and the anesthesiologist was able to turn up the medication to reduce my pain. And so basically I was just closing my eyes at that point and letting the surgery happen. By the end of the surgery, it was about 7 p.m. at night. The doctor sat me up and started to explain to me what they had done. They had explained that the symptoms, the EKG and stuff, led them to believe it was the lower part of my heart that was having an issue. But as they showed me the live x-rays and what they had done using the dye to see where the clots were, they had shown me my right artery and that I had 2 blockages in my right artery. One was partially blocked, almost maybe 80%. And then they showed, after they put in the stent, how that cleared up. And then they showed me the second one, which was 100% blocked, which was their most concern, obviously, it being 100% blocked. And then that the dye basically didn't go anywhere at that blockage. And once they put the stent in, they showed me how much the fluid filled up my artery there. It was an enormous amount of blockage of arteries that were not transporting blood to my heart and causing my pain. But it wasn't clots due to plaque. It wasn't anything other than blood clots, which I have no history of blood clots. Some of my firefighter, paramedic, EMT friends have said, because they know my family history, they said, we believed you would have probably heart issues when you're older, just due to your genetics and your parents. Both of them have had, my father's had stents multiple times, maybe a couple heart attacks. But my father's first heart attack was when he was age 58. My mother as well, maybe in her late 50s, mid to late 50s, first time she ever had any heart issues. She had to have chest cracked and whatever that procedure's called, I can't think of it at the moment. She had a defibrillator, pacemaker as well. Side note, my mom recently passed earlier this year in January due to a side effect of a heart medication which caused cirrhosis of the liver once the doctors found out with my mom that her liver was failing, she basically had less than 2 months, or it was within a month that then she had passed earlier this year in January. Back to the doctor showing me what happened. It should explain to me that the next day I would need to have surgery on the left heart. They were going to give me a day to recover from this surgery, and then I would have to have surgery on Thursday for another blockage on the left side of my artery. My day nurse just came in today. Today is actually the 19th of August. Yesterday was the 18th. I just had to sign consent for my procedure tomorrow and for the anesthesiology consent forms. I'll be going back under it tomorrow. Not sure exactly what time. Today's Thursday, I believe. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll have that surgery, and I'll be in here at least till Saturday, and worst case, depending on how I recover, until Sunday. So I wanted to document what was happening to me at this time of my life. The oddity of this, I have not had the vaccine. I did not plan on having the vaccine, but multiple nurses and doctors here have asked me if I had COVID before. I explained that I did, and that they believe that is the cause for these blood clots and my almost death yesterday. I am very happy I didn't ignore these signs and symptoms and avoid going in to get checked out. I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea it was to this extent. I know I'll be all right, and that God has more in store for my life, and He's not ready for me yet. So I haven't fully processed this all emotionally, so I wanted to at least get this logged in case anything else happens tomorrow in the procedure. God bless. Thanks for your prayers.